Welcome to Muddy River News this week. I'm Bob Goff. Barb Baker Chapin from Transitions is our guest today. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Transitions, of course, does such great work for the community. It's a very busy time for you with April being Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Yes, for 27 years, Transitions has had a campaign to remind the public that child abuse occurs in our community, and it's an issue that creates lasting problems for children, and it's something we need to prevent.
And of course, unfortunately, it never goes away.
No, unfortunately, it doesn't. There have been, I think, some declines, perhaps, over the last several years, but sadly, about 35,000 Illinois children every year are the victims of abuse and neglect.
What's the best way to help those kids?
Well, I think that helping families is probably the most important thing we can do. I don't think a parent ever sets out to be an abusive parent, but sometimes parenting is tough. And when parents are stressed, when parents are dealing with their own personal problems, sometimes, their anger and their frustration can lead to abusive behavior. So being supportive of families and parents, I think, is one thing that we can do.
It's also a fine line, because lots of times parents are going to get upset about something. But there's also a fine line, but it's also a slippery slope that you don't want to fall into some trap where it's a regular thing, and you need to recognize when you lose your cool to take that step back and say, okay, I got to deal with this.
Right. Yeah, if parents can be aware that they're getting frustrated, they're getting angry, that's the time to separate, to cool down. It's not the time to discipline. And if parents can be aware of what they're experiencing and do that, that's one way to prevent their behavior getting out of control and perhaps, being abusive. I think all of us can do something to support kids and to nurture kids, whether it's just taking an interest in a child, asking a child about what they enjoy, listening to a child. All of those things say to a child they're important. So all of us can do that. As family members or neighbors, we can pay attention to the fact that maybe a neighbor is having financial problems, or maybe a family member is struggling because they've been ill, and offering to help, giving parents kind of a respite or a break can be helpful to parents too.
You also, though, have a program that they can help, though, with the Parents as Teachers program, though, correct?
Yes, correct.
Talk about that a little bit.
Okay. We have a Parents as Teachers program, and it's a program that serves children from birth to age 5. We also serve prenatally. We serve mothers who are pregnant. So, for example, a first-time mom, maybe who's a single mom who doesn't have children and is kind of overwhelmed with the responsibilities that will be coming her way, we can provide some support to her and some coaching on how to feed her baby, hold her baby, nurture her child. But then we work with children from birth to 5, and we work with their parents. And the goal of the program is really to help parents be their children's first teacher, and to remind parents that they have a very important role in helping their child master developmental tasks that are important for them to master before they enter school. And we provide all the services in the home, so people don't need transportation to get to us. All the services are at no cost, because we do have a grant that will pay for the services. So it's a great program to help parents learn some of the important things they can do in play with their children, and reading to their children, in giving them suggestions as to how to discipline a child. We can help children reach their developmental milestones in terms of social emotional development, speech development, and motor skill development. And our goal is to hopefully have kids reach their developmental goals by the time they're 5, so they can enter school ready to succeed.
It's so important, because sadly, I know there are many cases where parents, people who have children, let's just say, just turn them over. They get to that school age, and it's like, okay, take over.
Right.
And it's sad, but it's true. There's so many good, responsible parents out there who do what you do with reading the kids and field trips and do everything you can to be a good, interactive parent in those formative years. But unfortunately, you've got a lot of them who just sort of, oh, okay, they're in school now. My work's done.
Right. Well, parenting never ends.
No.
And, you always need to be there for your child. You need to listen to your child. You need to respect your child. And that task never ends.
No, I mean, let's face. I mean, I'm fortunate enough that both my parents are still alive, and trust me, there's times where I need them.
Sure.
And I'm 57 years old, so right. When you get to the point when you're that much younger, and having your parents who are younger and active and able to do, a child should never be afraid or embarrassed to go to their parents and say, I need help. And that parent should never be in a position to deny that child's help. They always need each other.
Right, and that's really an important thing. And I think the other issue oftentimes that plays a part in parents not being as involved is the electronics. And you'll see people in restaurants, and rather than communicating with their child or talking with their child, everybody's got their head down and they're on a phone, and so kids don't get the kind of interaction that perhaps they did before we had all these gadgets.
Yeah, my kids are just at that age to where it was just sort of really starting to come on, and we were also our kids, the youngest was really the first one who got like a lot of tablet time, but we were also very conscious that they were not going to get phones until they got to being 13 or 14. It was just like, no, and that's just because there's so many other activities that they're involved in and things like that. It is a necessary evil, but it is also something that certainly is more controllable by the parent than a lot of parents don't put those controls in that they should.
Right. And for the very young child, a child learns and develops their speech skills by listening to communication and listening to talk. And so one of the things in Parents as Teachers we really emphasize is spending time just talking with your child and reading to your child and communicating and using words so that your child starts to develop vocabulary.
Yeah, and again, sometimes that kid's going to have that favorite book, and you might have to read it to them over and over again, but that helps because that helps that child. If they have a specific story, or if there's a specific movie that you can interact with and both watch. I mean, I sat and watched Toy Story with my kids 100 times on a tape. So, but that was good because then we would get Toy Story related books, and we would do other things that all was very interactive, and I think our kids turned out okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Also, want to talk a little bit about other things coming up at Transitions. Of course, mental health. May is Mental Health Month. That's a very busy time, especially for you guys.
It is. During May, we kind of celebrate the whole community mental health movement. And, of course, Transitions has been a part of the community for, 69 years. The community is very fortunate because there were community leaders back in the early to mid-1950s who believed that mental health services should be offered in the community. And because of Mrs. Mormon and some other respected leaders in the community, they established a community mental health center before many communities had community-based services. So we've been providing outpatient counseling services and psychiatric services and family counseling services for many, many years, and all of those services continue today.
And of course, with your foundation, you do a lot of work with that, but you also do receive some help. You also receive part of the tax levy from the county as well, which goes a long way. But again, your primary driver, the foundation, and a lot of, like you said, a lot of community leaders have put in a lot of time and money to really make Transitions what it is today.
Right. We've been very fortunate to have wonderful support from the community.
Talking about mental health, though, anxiety's kind of become a buzzword. Everybody's, I got anxiety. but then there's there's the stress of every day, but there's also just true mental health, and when you have issues, that's something at Transitions. I'm sure you guys try to help people navigate that.
Right. You know, life can be stressful for all of us, as you mentioned, and what we try to let people know is that you'll have bad days, you'll have days where you're anxious, you'll have stress in your life, and you know, we need to find ways to cope, and most of us can find ways to cope with those kinds of stressors. But if a person finds that anxiety or depression is really interfering with their life, perhaps it's preventing them from parenting well, perhaps it's preventing them from getting up and going to work, perhaps it's preventing them from focusing on their job, perhaps it's causing them medical issues, then that's the time that you want to seek mental health treatment. If those kinds of situations are lasting for more than a few days and interfering with your abilities to live your life effectively, that's the time to reach out and get help.
And there's no question about it. I'm not trying to make light of it at all, but it's, certainly, again, today's day and age with we talked about the devices earlier, all the distractions and all the things going on in the world, and if you need that help, always ask. Never, we try to make it so, you guys try to make it so there's always got to be somebody to talk to, and I know if I'm struggling, I have my wife and other people who I can just sit down and go, hey, I gotta take time out here. But everybody needs that person,
right?
And sometimes you might need professional help, sometimes you might need medical help or clinical or pharmaceutical, whatever. But still, you've always got to have that person that you can reach out to. And again, you guys have a wonderful trained staff of counselors who can certainly be there for somebody if they need them.
Right, and all a person really has to do if they need us is either call our office, or Monday through Friday from 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, they can simply walk in, and we always have a staff member available to assist people on a walk-in basis during our regular business hours. After hours, there's also assistance. And if a person doesn't have that supportive person they can reach out to, they can always utilize the 988 system. Mm-hmm. And that is a crisis line that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A trained mental health professional will answer the call and will offer them assistance. If they need a local response, somebody to come actually to the site of their crisis, we have a mobile crisis response team that can respond. But there's always help available 24/7.
And you meant that's a good thing to mention, because it's like when people have some sort of emergency, they call 911. But yeah, 988 is something that is relatively new.
Yes.
That people really should be more aware of.
Right. That system started almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, it has not been around.
It's not been around long. And we, for 60 years, Transitions has had its own 24-hour, 7-day-a-week crisis telephone service. Right. But we have since terminated that and encouraged people to use the 988 system. Sure. Because it's an easy number to remember. If you're in a crisis, it's hard to get a phone book or get on your phone and try to find a right. crisis line. Absolutely. So the 988 system we think is a really great system to help people access emergency services.
And I'm glad we talked about it today. We'll also highlight that there as we talk about this. So always a pleasure to talk to you. Again, thanks for everything you guys do at Transitions. You guys are certainly out there doing God's work, and it is very much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, that's all the time we have for now. I'm Bob Goff. Have a great week.